Meg, can you already believe it's week 7 of the high school football season?
Oh, what? Sorry, I'm busy making a TikTok.
Well, we're back for another episode of Varsity360. It's week 7. We're getting into the stretch run of the high school football season, and this is really the time where, playoff seeds are decided. By now, all teams are into league play. 4A GSHL play begins this week. So we're going to do a little thing on today's podcast called 3 and Out. We're going to highlight 3 matchups, kind of go into some things to look for in each game, what it means for playoff positioning, and overall just kind of what we make of these teams at this point. But before we get into that, just how are you feeling going into week 7?
It's about dang time that the 4A Greater St. Helens League is getting into league play. It's crazy. We've seen this for years now. It's week 7, the final third of the season, but yet it's so crucial and important for these 4 teams finally getting started league play on Friday night.
Absolutely. And with that, we will segue right into a very interesting game that will be played at Kiggins Bowl this Friday night between Union and Skyview. Technically, both teams are 2-4, both coming off wins last week. Union beat Todd Beamer 54-0. Skyview in their long-awaited home debut beat Chief South 41-14. Long story short, I think both teams have some positive momentum on their side after kind of an up and down opening month of the season. For me, just something that jumps out right away is the QB play to look for in this game. Skyview junior QB Dugan Lugie, I don't know how you say it, but he looked like a seasoned veteran in last Saturday's win, throwing for 4 first-half touchdown passes to 4 different receivers. Union, meanwhile, is still doing this 2 to 3 quarterback system. Steve Pine has told us in the opening weeks of the season that it's still an ongoing competition between Blake McDonald and Armani Tonga and Gabe Kilgris. All 3 saw time last week against Todd Beamer. Presumably, they're still evaluating the position, but that could be an interesting matchup. What are some things you're looking forward to in this game, and what do you think will be key for each team to win?
Well, I'm going to start with Skyview first. And for me, I feel like the Storm are still a bit of a mystery. That would be my best way to describe Skyview, right? Up until last Saturday, none of us had seen the Storm play, and they went on just this gauntlet of a road trip, essentially going 1,400 plus miles throughout September to play road trips all over the Northwest, it felt like. But I think what's going to be key is going to be the line play. I think the offensive line is really a strength of Skyview's as well as that defense. Now, the last couple of weeks, they've been a bit banged up, especially in that front 7 on defense, but I think that linebacking core is really poised, a really veteran group, and I think that's really going to be a key thing for Skyview. On the other side of Union, you mentioned the quarterback play. It's very rare, especially at a 4A program, to have kind of these 2 quarterback battles, but essentially we're seeing 3. That is really a rarity. And the fact that they're going into week 7 with still no solidified number 1 QB1 is a bit of a mystery. But if anyone can do it with success, it is Steve Pine.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's exactly my thoughts on it. It's just you see these quarterback battles, but it's so rare to have it go this late into the season. And I feel like they're really, wanting somebody to emerge before they make that call. But I guess if that doesn't happen, they're comfortable playing multiple guys. I suppose it's possible now that these games are the ones that count. Maybe this is the week that they finally decide to roll with one. We'll see on Friday night, but I think it's going to be interesting. And, just for playoff positioning, obviously in this league, every game matters so much. For the last several years now, it's been Camas and Skyview at the top, but really I would say it's just 1 of 3 games, but it's an important one right off the bat. Just offhand, do you know when the last time Union beat Skyview is?
Let me think. I'm going to say 2018 undefeated state championship season.
Correct. That might have been too easy of a question, but that is correct. That was the last time the Titans went on, of course, to win the Class 4A state title. Since then, Skyview has won 6 in a row in this series. But I think, like you said, it's a little bit of a mystery with the Skyview team, and we're still figuring out Union as well. So pretty fascinating game to watch on Friday.
And remember, just 2 playoff spots out of the 4As. For the last number of years, we've seen 3. So it's 1 fewer. And so the winner of this game is going to definitely have a leg up when it comes to snagging one of those 2 spots.
For sure. All right, let's move on. Prairie and Evergreen are going to be game 1 of a doubleheader at McKenzie Stadium. Both teams right now are tied for 2nd place in the league. It's been an interesting kind of theme for both teams. Both had to play Kelso early on, and both are kind of a little bit, just trying to figure things out right now, but still in a very good position, obviously. I would say, honestly, these teams have had somewhat similar experiences in the fact that, their offenses primarily run through a dynamic group of pass catchers, great quarterbacks. Haven't really had much of a run game so far. For instance, Prairie with Devin Viju is the leading rusher by more than 300 yards, and a lot of those have come on kind of these scramble, broken play situations. I believe Evergreen's leading rusher, according to our stats, is somewhere in like the 250 range. So a lot of pass catchers. Obviously, Evergreen has the 2 dynamic D1 commits with Terrence Sarion, BYU, and Darren Schmidt at Arizona. We've seen this Prairie group has been together for their whole high school careers, and now are all seniors. So that's interesting to me. But I think also the lack of being able to run kind of speaks to, a bigger issue that was a little bit exposed against a team like Kelso with kind of a little bit of tough, lineman play, I would say, just between the two. So I'll be curious to see who wins that battle. But ultimately, again, what are kind of some things that interest you about this game?
Yeah, I think keys to the game, I'm going to start with Prairie. And what's going to be key for them defensively is how their secondary does against guys like Terrence Sarion, Darren Schmidt, EJ English. Yeah. We all know Evergreen likes to throw the ball. That will be tested very much for Prairie secondary. On the flip side for Evergreen, how well will they contain Devin Viju? He's coming off a right ankle sprain sustained really in the opening drive against Kelso last week, and it really hindered Prairie's offense, their play calling, because so much of what Prairie does go through Viju. His legs, he's so good at extending plays and extending drives. And those first couple of snaps after he rolled his ankle, you could see he was really hobbling a bit, but he might have been not 100%, but there was no way you were going to take that guy out of a game, like the importance of that one against Kelso, even though they lost that game. So yeah, how well can Evergreen contain Viju? On the flip side, how well would that Prairie secondary do trying to contain a number of outside weapons for Evergreen?
Yeah, like you said, Viju, even at less than 100%, still a pretty good player out there, and would expect the same thing this week. Like I mentioned at the top, both teams are tied for second in the 3A GSHL at 1-1 records. Three playoff berths out of this league, so the winner puts themselves in a really good position for a top 3 spot. The loser would obviously have to win out to still get into the playoffs. So a massive game for both sides. Just a quick thought though, Evergreen was on the road last week at Shelton. They won 27-20. What did you make of that result? What did that tell you about them?
Yeah, we were all in the office when we heard that score, and my reaction was, oh my gosh, I expected Evergreen to handle Shelton more or less convincingly.
Yeah.
27-20 is not exactly a score that I was expecting. So both Evergreen and Prairie are pretty hungry right now. Evergreen coming off that league opening loss at Kelso kind of was an eye-opening moment for them. And Prairie, on the flip side, it's been a minute since they've been in the postseason, and this is a senior group that really wants to take that next step and play in a Week 10 matchup. That's not your typical, we didn't make the postseason, we're still going to play a Week 10 game, non-league matchup. So yeah, both these teams are hungry, and I think the winner of this game will be definitely the front runner for that second seed.
Yeah, well said. We move on to the nightcap at McKenzie Stadium. That's going to be Kelso, 5-1, facing the undefeated Heritage Timberwolves at 6-0. Again, Kelso beat Prairie last week at District Stadium. Heritage beat Mountain View for the first time since 2010, 21-0 to improve to 6-0. To me, the most interesting aspect of this matchup is Heritage's defense against Kelso's offense. Heritage has allowed just 4.3 points per game in 6 games. 3 of those have been shutouts. Last week was one of them. Sophomore Traylon McGraw had 2 interceptions in addition to a punt return touchdown and a receiving touchdown. Really an impressive, just the way they've been able to just shut down opposing offenses. And then you go face them against Kelso, one of the best lines in the game, a great balanced running attack, an experienced QB in Anders Dahl. Really, to me, that is going to be what it hinges on. But wow, it's going to be a fun one between the 2 first-place teams out there at McKenzie Stadium.
I think so, and deservingly so. Heritage is playing by far its best ball that we have seen in a long time. When you go back to the start of this program back in 1999, they have never been 6-0. They had never even been 5-0 before winning last week. So I think what's going to be key for Heritage is they have not faced yet a team like Kelso that primarily plays inside the hashes, smash, pound for pound, run the ball basically every 2, 3, 4 plays, and every once in a while Anders Dahl will make a downfield play to Alex Dieter. But this is going to be a big test for Kelso too. I think if they get past Heritage, they're basically more or less locking up that 3A Greater St. Helens League title, first one in 4 years for the Highlanders. But both teams coming into this game feeling really, really good. It should be a fantastic game.
Yeah, you said it. Barring a huge upset in the weeks to come, it looks like a win for Kelso, and this would pretty much wrap things up. For Heritage, obviously a win would go a long, long way in their pursuit of their first playoff appearance since 2011. But even if they were to lose, they still have Evergreen and Prairie coming up in the next 2 weeks. So 2 more opportunities to potentially vault into that top 3, depending on what happens on Friday. A little more thoughts on Kelso. I was at that game last Thursday as well against Prairie, and I was really impressed by Anders Dahl and just kind of his overall command of the Highlanders offense. He can run a little bit. He knows how to spread the ball around to receivers. Just kind of a maturity and poise to him. And obviously he's been around for a while now. I remember seeing him 2 years ago, I think it was, as a sophomore when he filled in for Tucker Amrine and did an admirable job there as well. So I feel like this is a pretty just veteran-looking Kelso group on paper, and they've really proved it so far. Why do you think, though, overall, that Kelso has just kind of been the most consistent teams for so long in the 3A GSHL?
Well, that's just the identity of what Kelso is.
Yeah.
I mean, for so long, it has been basically the same identity. They're not very flashy, but they play really, really disciplined football in between the trenches. And everything starts with those big boys up front. And when's the last time you saw a Kelso team that was outmatched up front? It just doesn't happen. Right. And it's something up there in the water in Calais County that we know about that has them growing guys 6'3 plus, 250, 260 plus, averaging across the line. Mason Hansen is their leading rusher outside of Anders Dahl as well. And it doesn't matter if it's Connor Noah carrying the ball. It doesn't matter if it's Aiden Montagnier carrying the ball. It's so much time we see time and time again Kelso having so much success finding that next tailback, finding that next fullback. And this is just another typical Kelso team under a new head coach, Darren Gardner, who is a longtime assistant, 20 years in the program, and is a Kelso grad in itself. So things are looking really good for Kelso to win another league title here.
Awesome. Okay, well, we will leave it at that and return to what is now a repeat segment, and hopefully one that sticks around for a while. We're going back to Brutally Honest, and talking about kind of a pretty, I would say, just kind of current topic, that something that's kind of come up these past 2 weeks, in particular with one of our local teams, but I think overall kind of a growing issue when it comes to high school football and scheduling. Meg, you have the floor.
Thank you. Brutally Honest this week is, and we have seen it, we're going to begin with Skyview, just 2 weeks ago, having Decatur cancel on them 30 hours before their homecoming game 2 weeks ago Friday. We're starting to see a growing trend, and it's a disturbing trend of teams canceling at the last minute, canceling in September a couple weeks before their game. And now, unfortunately, we're seeing teams quit in the middle of a game. It happened at Kalama 2 weeks ago with their homecoming game against Stevenson when they led 32-0. Stevenson said at halftime, "Hey, you know what? Thanks, but we're going to call it quits and hit the buses early." So, what I have a problem with is there's no repercussions to this. worse.
Right.
And so what I am proposing, and this was voted down by the Rep Assembly last year when this was voted up for an amendment, it is an automatic monetary fine if you cancel on a team within the season. It could be 30 hours beforehand. It could be sometime in early September if you know a game in late October is going to happen, because of the impact that it has on everybody. Preparation. There is no harder thing in high school football than trying to find an opponent, especially last minute. It is just a gauntlet trying to do so.
Sure.
So, and my monetary value, $1,000 fine. So I know it's hefty, but it's going to deter teams and programs in schools not to cancel last minute for unknown reasons. Now, let's go back to Decatur and Skyview. The reason I was told is because there were a number of ineligible players, although they told Skyview's coaches and administration that, yeah, we have enough to still field a team, but we're still not going to come down. Like, that's not acceptable. Why is that okay? And so implementing an automatic fine that, in my idea, would go toward that school's ASB fund to help for various expenses, maybe travel costs to try to find a last minute opponent. And so having these last minute cancellations, these have to stop. And so for some reason, I think the last 4 or 5 years, there's a level of apathy maybe that we haven't seen that's allowing this to occur more often, but it feels like it's happening more and more on a statewide basis, especially this year.
I don't know if this is just a coincidence or this is just kind of the way things are moving, but it seems like with some of these games, it's almost as firm as like a player committing to a college and then flipping, several months later.
Yep.
When we were talking about this Decatur Skyview game earlier, that was my first question. Like, is there any oversight? Like, who kind of holds these teams accountable when something like this happens? And it sounds like the short answer right now really is there is no accountability.
There is no accountability. No. And on the flip side, and everyone's talking about, well, what about the O'Day game? You're right. That was more or less a mutually agreed upon, just we're not going to play. But yet Decatur, Skyview, according to Skyview, was officially a 2-0 forfeit win for Skyview. So officially in the record books, Matt Hamlin earned his first win as a high school head football coach in a 2-0 win, which, he would be the first to say that doesn't really count. The win last Saturday against Chief South at Kiggins Bowl was his first official win, 41-14, to get their first dub of the season. But something has to be done to hold these teams accountable, and we need to have another amendment cycled through for that to happen. Maybe it doesn't have to be a $1,000 fine, but that surely would prevent teams from doing what we've been seeing more and more of.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's a good solution, and I think there has to be, like you said, kind of a standard deadline for it too. You can't be doing this 36, 48 hours before a game, obviously. And, just one other note, something that came to mind when we were talking about this is, we saw a situation this year kind of in the Trico League going into it where Columbia White Salmon opted to play an independent schedule, kind of, try to get some more competitive games in. Not an ideal situation, obviously, for the rest of the teams in the Trico League that suddenly had an open date, but that was something that was announced well ahead of time, something that gave most teams, if they so chose, to find another opponent. Most teams ended up doing that. So to me, that's all well and good. There's going to be times where a team just has to say, like, hey, we just don't have it this year. We're going to try and field a more competitive schedule. But certainly these more recent examples, I think, are a little more egregious and maybe just not something that's totally within reason of fulfilling your duty to play a game. Yeah,
talking with Skyview AD Julian Williams, when Decatur did decide to cancel, he went into negotiation mode. Hey, what can we do to make this game still happen? At the time we're a winless team. We're battling some injuries. Maybe this is an opportunity for both teams to play their younger guys. So he was trying to do everything in his power to not have a canceled game. I mean, think of it, having a game not only canceled inside 36 hours before kickoff, but that was supposed to be Skyview's homecoming.
Right.
And so they didn't have all of those homecoming festivities that you normally would and you would essentially plan for from the start of the school week leading into that Friday night game. So a lot of things basically fell by the wayside because of a no game. And so even when Chief Sells was a last minute fill-in for a week 6, what was supposed to be a week 6 idle game, there also was some negotiations going on. And Julian, in the back of his mind, even was going to offer, he told me, Chief Sells $500 in transportation funds.
Wow.
It didn't get to that point, but there was still negotiations going on to make sure that both teams had a week 6 game.
Yeah, at that point, it seems like it's just, can we play a game?
Yes.
Can we, it doesn't have to be, you know, maybe the most ideal version of that game, but can we just get guys on the field? Can we get a gate for the game? Can we get people coming to the game rather than just, you know, having Kiggins Bowl stay quiet on a Friday night? So
could you imagine if Skyview went not 1 week, but 2 straight weeks without a game for a 4A program?
Leading into league play
Yes.
as well, that would have just been terrible.
Absolutely brutal.
Yeah, good on Chief South for making it out last week. And, you know, I know Skyview certainly had to have valued that going into league play and to get a Saturday game at home. And it sounded like they fine-tuned some things. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to plug before we sign off?
That's it. That's all I can think of.
Cool. Well, I will just say, yeah, thank you for coming up with this idea. Good to have another Reporters Only podcast for Varsity360. And to the listeners, thank you again for watching, and we will see you next week.